Okay, everyone, if you can go ahead and take a seat, we're going to get started. Thank you for being here this evening. Thankfully, the weather has been here to us today, except a little windy. Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Trishelle Plavat. I am the Director of Education here at Buffalo Soldiers National Museum. I think that I've been part of the museum world for over 10 years, and I've really grown and learned in this space. I feel like it is important to have representation in these spaces, especially here in Houston. So it's very good to be a part of this community. Buffalo Soldiers has been around for 20 years. It's founded by Captain Paul Matthews. When he started to collect items and artifacts about Buffalo Soldier history until the day that his wife said, you need to get these things out of our house because you have too many things. So he built a museum out of that. And because of that effort, for the last 40 years, they have educated students, the community, about the contributions of Black men and women in the military and their services in history. Now, I was brought on about 2 years ago because our CEO, Desmond Burchett Pitts, who isn't here tonight, wanted to create a space that's much more inclusive and conscious to our Black and Brown community, but also our Indigenous community. I was brought on because we wanted to be a little bit more understanding and creating a healing space for our future museum. So the space you're in now will be changing, and I can't give too much information about how it's going to be changing, but it will be changing in the fact that we will be more aware about the language that's in our space. We will also be bilingual in English and Spanish because we want to provide an opportunity for other, specifically Spanish-speaking communities, to come and learn about this history and find those connections. And one thing that I'm doing is bringing in the Afro-Latino community, who has been a part of the military services for many years, right? Many decades, many unfortunate wars, but their stories have been hidden within that. So we want to bring out the Afro-Latino areas as well. So I invite you to come back to learn more, to reach out to us, to ask questions, to be critical. We want to learn from our community as well. So we welcome you into this space, and I'll stop grabbing you. But I am around if you want to ask any questions. And I'd like to invite a very special person and her daughter to the front, who is going to share a very important message quotes, and that is bring flower in her.
Good afternoon, y'all. So my name is Awada Mapihit Bangkichake. It's a Pawi-Tekken word. I'm Ishnopina, 7th generation Texan on my mom's side. And on my dad's side, Napache, perhaps a Kaya. We're still in our genetic projects this time. So my family and I are culture bearers. We just came from a remade erasure project because we're part of these teachings from the women lineages of Native American heritage. And so we were able to put down a Buffalo relative this past weekend. So my daughter was carrying the voice of the song of the women nation, and I was carrying the space to smudge. And as the Buffalo came, we knew that perhaps she would be with child, and she was. So just before my daughter was supposed to sing, she felt like she was going to pass out. In our ways, we made parameters around our ceremonial spaces with our smudge. So as I was completing walking these parameters of getting prepared just much probably like 300 relatives from all over the state of Texas as Native Americans coming together, remembering our Buffalo teachings, she felt like she was going to pass out. And it was because when they started to open her up, they realized that she was with child. So in this way, we're coming really heavy-hearted from that, and also ecstatic to be chosen to be part of the representation of the wave of BIPOC future of what's happening. My heart was very heavy this morning, knowing that I would need to walk into this space because of the past histories that have happened between all of our nations. When we are honoring colonial white settler violence in our homes and in our descendancies, and in everything that we are, we need to understand that those are narratives that are placed out there because it makes us feel better, or it changes the fact that we may have harmed one another in the past. And so I just want to say that much to you all, and then also remember former Mayor and Congressman Sylvester Turner. When I woke up realizing everything that was going to happen today, and then I was receiving text messages at 8 o'clock this morning of his passing, it was very heavy. He was the reason why we got Indigenous Peoples Day. It took 7 years. 7 years of peaceful walking, placing chains on the Columbus statue as a reminder of what that transatlantic slave foundation was. If we were one of 7 cities that had that statue still here. So here we are gathering AIM people, gathering Native American church elders, danza teachers, all kinds of people for years after years, 7 years, organizing the Chicano professors and people to get together, and then even making relationships with the Italian heritage, at the time veteran ballerina of the Houston Ballet, Billy, who was able to speak as an Italian-American descendant and said, no, we don't need that statue here to be honoring our heritage anymore. And her silent, quiet, yet such a strong delivery of a message on that behalf is what began to change things for us. And Sylvester Turner was the one that asked me, after the 3rd annual Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation, he said, bien, when are we going to vote? And I said, sir, and I know the city of Houston would be so kind as to give us an Indigenous Peoples Day in lieu of Columbus Day. He said, well, you go and talk to the council members and see what you can do. So we did, alongside former council members Cisneros and Gallegos were able to get Indigenous Peoples Day after 7 years of working. I don't know if it changes things, perhaps now. Don't think we would see it in this generation at all. But the things that we're doing now are to plant the seeds for our 7 generations to come. That's the way Natives have always thought about it. We think about it. I'm 7th generation Texan, my daughter's 8, and my nieces and nephews are 9th. And so we're gonna just share one verse of a Woman Buffalo song, just to close it.
That was really beautiful. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Puk Ha. I'm the Senior Education Manager at Asian Society Texas, just down Caroline, and I'm so honored to be here and very moved by the words said earlier, and I'm so happy that we're gathered as a community to discuss the future of the state of the arts here in Houston. I really do believe that the future lies in community. We're gonna figure out, discover together what we need and what we need to learn from each other. So we want to start, because the purpose of tonight is to gather and really get to know what we have to offer each other and how we can support each other in times of difficulty and times of uncertainty as well. So one thing that we want to do is start some conversation among the groups. So you can really get to know your neighbors, those of you who are here with you. The question that we really want to discuss now is the cultivation of partnerships, the partnerships that you already have within your own organizations, the people that support you and your work. So we want to spend some time to ask, and the question is on the screen as well, for you to share with someone that you did not come with, your neighbor next to you, a win that comes from partnership in the community, what you have really learned or received from each other. So we're gonna spend some time to chat, and I'll kind of float around too, and then we'll regather as a group and share out some of the conversational pieces that were brought up during this part. Okay, so please look at turn to your neighbor, someone that you hopefully did not come with, and talk about partnership and what that means. Thank you again for having such exciting conversations with each other. I hope you're actually talking to a new group, but not just with your friends you came in with, right? But yeah, let's discuss some of these wins. I think it's important to acknowledge them so that we can hear what different types of wins are for each other, so that you can maybe define some wins that you may be experiencing that you don't realize. So I think it may have some colors or lights that can go around too. So answer, but I'd love for a volunteer to share something that they discussed with their group, right?
Yeah, so this is my group, and we shared a little bit. I have a project that came from my racial community. My name is Barpa. Hi. So my project was, I call it a band. So my band was, I have always wanted to do this documentary on the history Euros, Texas Southern University, there's Euros, that they had all administration building. And so if everybody's familiar with John Digers, he started he was co-founder of the art program along with Carol Sims at Texas Southern University in the 50s, 49, 50? Right. So anybody that went through this program, upon their graduation, they have to do a mural at Buchanan Hall. Buchanan Hall is the admin building at Texas Southern University's campus. So within that building, there's 3 floors on murals, about 130 murals that have been there for decades. And people pass by these murals all the time, beautiful works of art, the chronicles of history of the decades that have passed throughout the years. And gone to school in Texas, that's why I graduated. I worked there for 2 years, I did graphic design here, and I always taught at yours. And I've asked for years, hey, can I do a documentary on these murals? Oh yeah, sure, we'll get that done for you, right? So, year after year, year after year, year after year, I've asked, I asked, over and 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 over again. So finally, we had a meeting with Dr. Bogo. So my partnership with it is with the University Museum of Texas University Cares. It's an amazing museum, amazing art there. And so finally we met, and I was like, hey, you don't have to pay me. I just want to get this done while all the elders are still here. So we can get the recordings on the camera. So anybody that's, not me, I'm a compulsive documentarian. I record a lot of interviews. And this is an ideal opportunity to make this happen while a lot of these people were here, cohesive, looking good. And so my concept was to shoot them in front of their murals. So I've done two so far. I applied for HAA grant, and I got the grant because I'm just doing my heart. This had to be done. I was like, I'll pay myself. I just want this to happen. So I already did shot two murals last week. I got another one coming up this week. Two more, Justice Fuentes and John Davis. Those were two I just shot, trying to track out Bobby Huddown for his hero. Then the following week, I want to shoot Bert Samples, who's one of the founders of Project Horizons. All this stuff kind of comes together. And all these people are really dynamic people, elders in all right, that have done so much for the community. So it's a late honor to legacy John Biggers, murals, Texas Southern University, and all these wonderful murals to do so much for the community. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else maybe from this side of the room?
Hello, everybody. I'm Rehab Organization's Awesome Badge. We're in schools. We attend our culture, creativity, and mindfulness to help kids cope with stress and depression. So, when we first started, I don't know if y'all know, but music production software is very expensive, okay? So I had ran my pilot at the school I was teaching at. It did fantastic. And I was like, how can I keep this going, right? So I called Ableton, which is what you call He-Man, which is the software that I was using. Talked to the guy, he was like, your name sounds super familiar. I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah. And long story short, he ended up partnering with them to where you get free software like since 2016. And this software is like $1,000 a season. So I would say the thing about that is dreaming bigger than what you think you can, right? Because I didn't think that we were able to actually do anything, but taking a step and just reaching out and now we're super good, we get free stuff all the time. So, thank you.
I'm with the Islamic Art Society, and one of the partnerships in the community that we've been really proud of is with Asia Society, which goes back almost 8 years now. We started partnering with them in their programming, and then we've invited to partner with us whenever we have programs. So here we are sharing not only resources, but also bringing together communities that may not have otherwise intersected. So we look at it as a win-win situation, and we're going back again next month.
Maybe someone on this side, right here.
Hi everyone, my name is June. I'm from Asian American Art and Culture Initiative. We are a newly found television organization. Now we're working on a traveling museum. I can call it a traveling exhibition. So I'm here to share with Ms. Kina from the Gandhi Museum and Tony from So they shared with me how their organization started out as a travel museum, and that's where we are right now. We have received So our multidisciplinary project actually is uncovering the Chinese American history through art, documentary, historical artifacts, and also music. We have a pianist or composer that is writing an original music to honor those who came to Texas and built a railroad and started from there. Our project is called Roots Unveiled. Sounding like it's unveiling the Chinese Americans experience, but it's also my family's experience. I just shared with them that my sixth generation great grandfather came to the United States as a laundryman, but nobody knew about it, nobody talked about it. But because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, he went back to China after several years, and then he spent over here. Then after the World War II, I think it's my great uncle came. So then my grandma came, and then we came. And it actually goes hand in hand, my family history goes hand in hand with the Chinese American history, that we are disconnected. The generation that came before is disconnected with the one that came after. And that creates a huge social issue right now within our community. And I feel very proud that we're partnering with the community leaders in Austin, Dallas, and Houston. Now we are forming a traveling project that are showcasing at the central communities in all these cities. And now we're talking to El Paso Museum of History. And these two wonderful people just told me that this is where they started. So I got very encouraged. Hopefully we can work with Asia Society one day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, with the HIST board, and I wanted to congratulate Sangman's work about the terminology of UC of Houston, because the idea of a partnership in this day is having grown a teacher drive by on either side. And so I wanted to highlight how many of these partnerships could be very organic. They don't have to be official community organizations through something, but it could start with something important, like someone seeing what the work we're doing and reading that as well. So I really excited to hear about the work that you're doing to make the work of God known to our community. And through that t-shirt, now last year had the nominations of the students, and then this year, so now doubling, over doubling. And you could do that again next year. How many more people and and the idea of all of the work that we do to help us all remember, right? That's the idea of remembering, is putting back together things that have been discussed. And so I really appreciate being in this room to help us all remember our ties to our cultures, to our people, and to each other. And my support today is opportunities available to some of you.
These two. What a way to kick off the conversation. I'm so moved. Just kind of recap. There's so many different types of bits and so many different types of partnerships. Organic, finding answers, connections, persevering, exchanging ideas, dreaming the big. I think that's all super, super important. That we kind of hear these things, because I think hearing the wins really provides the strength and inspiration to help each other write more. So thank you for this great icebreaker, and I hope that we can continue to learn more about each other and how we can support each other as the conversation builds on. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby Chop. I am here as a representative of both organizations who are co-hosting this evening's town hall, and I wanted to give you a little bit of grounding around how we got here. So tonight's town hall is being held in conjunction with both the BIPOC Arts Network Fund and Arts Connect Houston, both of who are doing work in the realm of K-12 arts education and looking at slightly different approaches. But how did this get started? So back in 2022, a conversation came up between the BIPOC Arts Network Fund and Arts Connect Houston around what it would look like to do a little bit of exploration around what it means for BIPOC-founded and BIPOC-led organizations who are working in arts education in Houston, what barriers they're facing, what issues might be coming up, and where supports could possibly be needed. So we dove into work with those two organizations working together to spend some time exploring. So much like all of the work that's done through BANF and through Arts Connect, this work has been completely community-driven to this point. We started off by putting together a design team for this work, a cohort of 6 individuals from BIPOC-founded and BIPOC-led organizations. And we were very careful to make sure that we were looking at diversity, not just in artistic discipline, but in organizational scale, in the length of history for said organization, and also the geography, because we know that sometimes in Houston, the arts means inside the loop for folks, but the arts don't live inside the loop. The arts live outside of, what are we on, 3 rings now? So we wanted to make sure that we were representing folks from all over the greater Houston area, not just the 610 inner loop. We went into this work, we know that there's needs, right? We know there's needs. We went into this work specifically thinking about assets and abundance and what we already have within our communities that we can be leveraging to provide students with better access to arts education. What did we decide to do? Process. So we started looking at needs assessments, and then we thought, you know what? Let's asset map instead. Let's talk about what we've got. We did have a lot of conversations with the community. We built a community survey so that we could gather data, so that we could not only leverage the narratives that we were capturing, but also leverage numbers in our advocacy work. We put together a report at the end of a year worth of exploration, and you can see more by following the QR codes on the screen right now. We wanted to make sure that we were data-driven. There is a link to the survey report as well inside that report. But we also wanted to stay flexible and responsive to the community because Houston's going through a lot, and it's been going through a lot. We decided that we were going to stay ready to change, ready to address the needs as they changed for our communities. So I am going to pass it over to Michelle to talk a little bit about the learnings that came out of this process, because Michelle was part of the design team for this work.
Can everyone hear me? There we go, we're on? Okay. So yes, I'm grateful to be a part of the design team. I've also been with BANF as their part of the advisory, how to be an advisory council member. So it has some history with BANF. When I was asked to be a part of this team, I had just started actually in this museum space. And so it was brand new to me, right? I was asked to be a representative of Buffalo Soldiers, but I also came in as an educator, as someone who's an advocate for arts and for arts education. And so in that space, meeting the other members of the cohort, who all came with different skill sets, right? From a CEO level down to program manager, that's it down to, but you know, different levels of experience. And so it was really important to listen to one another, and that's what we did. And we had a great facilitation through Effie and the team to pool our skill set and pool the stories that we have, our experiences from one another, and to learn from one another. I learned that in the arts education world, all of us are experiencing different experiences, but at the same time, we all give our all to our community, right? To our students, to our teachers. And sometimes we put ourselves in the back, right? We put our own health, our mental health in reserves, right? And we focus more on how our programs and how our work is affecting the community. And in that space, working with everyone, we were able to share those experiences, but also build on that. Like, what is missing in these communities, and how can we build the infrastructure? How can we build sustainable programs for communities. So we took a lens into the communities of Houston, right? We looked at specifically the Southwest, where there's a high refugee immigrant group of people there, new to this country, who many of the young people there need a space to be creative, need a space to learn and to feel comfortable. And so one of the cohort members has a great organization, I believe it goes by Chat, who is leading such a beautiful organization there for young women and men to be creative. And taking that lens, put myself in, I put myself into the perspective of, wow, I don't work with that community here in my space. I'm learning from her because from her challenges, from her successes, what can I bring to my space and how can I also partner with her to support her? So what was beautiful about the cohort is that we were able to work with one another. We learned from one another, we were able to support one another. And it felt like a very, at first, uncomfortable space, but it also was a space where we could grow with each other. And I think, I'm rambling, but I think that we really did create such a really great bond with one another as well. And I think what was beautiful is that we also built respect and trust. And I think in arts education, and of course in education and community building, you have to have that first, right? You have that first.
So much of what we're doing is network building and resource sharing. That comes from collective action, and collective action puts us in a place to advocate well for our shared goals and support each other in advocating for our individual goals as well. In a moment, you will be hearing from the executive directors of both BANF and Arts Education. But before we move on to our panel this evening, I'd like to take a moment to think about an advocate in our community that has done so much for arts education and for the arts. As Rainflower mentioned earlier, we lost Sylvester Turner this morning, or the news was shared with the community this morning. Sylvester Turner has supported arts education in Houston for much longer than he was actually the mayor in Houston. He has been an advocate for the arts at every stage of his career. So I'd like to just take a moment of silence for an advocate that we lost today. Thank you, everyone, for sharing in that moment of remembrance and respect. We are going to introduce now, have them take the stage, 3 arts advocates that have been doing so much for our community. I'd like to call Ricky Aldore, who will be serving as our moderator this evening, Jack McBride, and Sister Ryan.
Little bit more.
Good evening, everyone. I will start with a quote by an artist by the name of Ricky Fred Cohort Jr. The secret to being a great teacher is to be an even better student. Hello everyone, my name is Ricky Fred Cohort Jr. And I feel like us being here tonight exemplifies that exact quote. And it's something that I used to share with my students all the time. As an art teacher, as a science teacher, and now working with teachers to really try and empower the Kansas community to understand the importance of art. And so with that quote, I also have a little mantra. And I'm really doing this because I want you to kind of feel where the panel is going tonight. And that mantra is, I have to stand up when I say it because I really mean it. I am a student and I am an artist. When I work with students, I will work my hardest to be the best that I can be, because I know that that is what those students expect of me. So I'm gonna just jump right in with the big word. And the big word that I'd like to jump in with is data. Being on the design team, which I was so fortunate to be a part of, one of the things that I noticed throughout the applications is the lack of. And so being invited as to be the moderator tonight, that's kind of where I wanted to begin the conversation. Because prior to data, there were flyers, there was the internet, there was Facebook. But now, as I learned from a great old friend, Mr. Joseph Dixon, now we have AI. And what feeds AI is data. So as art educators, that data is what we want to put into the AI machine so that we can then have those conversations with other industries that are using AI to drive their business. For example, I work very closely with the Houston Independent School District, and I've been doing that for many, many years in many different capacities. But I just want to share a little data with you. And by share, I mean you can take this data with you and use it. So here we go. Houston Independent School District. It's the largest school district in Texas, 8th largest in the United States, over 100 different languages spoken, 274 campuses, 187,000 students, and 79% of those students are economically disadvantaged. Use that data in your next application. And whoever reads that application, they say, well, how many of those schools did you work with? One, which is why I'm filling out this application for more funds to support the arts in my community. What does it look like? Very simple, quantitative. There were 13 boys in my program, 4 girls. What about their zip code? 5 of my kids came from one zip code, 6 of the students participated came from another zip code. Those are numbers that can be created, quantitative data, kept over time, shared with this wonderful group of people that we have this evening, and we will all have strength when we're filling that artificial intelligence machine. What about what grade level? Super simple. We think about qualitative data, right? Were you an artist before you came in this program? Do you feel like an artist now? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate a person's suitability? And these are numbers as we're filling out those applications for the grants to do the documentary. That's how it happens. Because those 130 girls needed you. I love your all. I have a picture I want to show you. I think it's all over the bug. Those are the type of data numbers that we're using. And so when we're all able to see that, if we just sit around right now and think about all of the numbers that we have collected in our brain that we never really put on paper and shared with the world, that number would be enormous. How many hours have you really practiced on your craft? That would be something great compared to an aberration. And as a reader or as a designer that is the lens in which I look. So in some of the feedback, maybe some of you have seen that I did write that through feedback. Would rate just a little bit more data. Because I know how artists feel about data. Numbers, math, that's, But I'm excited to be able to have this conversation with Jack and Sixto to kind of share with everyone what that goes. But one of my fights, one of my fights that I would love to share with art before I forget, I wrote it on here. Throughout art education, I learned very early that whenever I used the word field trip, I got no respect. as soon as I changed it to field lesson, words carry power. Sitting to my left, I would like to introduce Projecting Pride comes to us from Arts Connect, true arts advocate. And through his work, we've seen a lot of the data that he has shared. Mind please, a few highlights you found.
Yeah, thank you so much for that cue up. And I very beginning have to also acknowledge Mayor Turner, Representative Turner. He, like Effie brought up and other folks have brought up, and it's a little personal, but he was such an advocate for the arts before and during his tenure as mayor and beyond. And my colleague Taylor and I were just in his office recently in DC advocating to his staff about furthering arts education within Houston. So the news really got me today, but this is a side note, but after the Orlando Pulse shooting, Mayor Turner at the time attended every single vigil within the LGBTQ community here in Houston and spoke eloquently and personally and specifically about protecting the LGBTQ community. So on top of being an arts advocate and a supporter of the arts, I've never forgotten those moments. And so I just want to say thank you to that person who's taking this person out. I'm looking at anyone feel like be sad before I talk about data, which is just the most boring thing ever. But also the one time I met in person, guys, at the time he had read poetry at a book launch for Houston's favorite poems, and so he considered himself called his local conference. So to have an artist in practice and advocate, the executive one of us, Miss Easy so to Mayor Turner for. At Arts Connect, I have been with the organization since 2013. I took on the role of executive director in 2023. One of our key components is advocating on behalf of the arts education community here within UCA, specifically currently as arts education organizations working with Houston Independent School District. And so our advocacy is about more students having more access to arts education, because we all know why. More access to be more students in arts ed, more students in arts ed, more students attend school, stay engaged, that they get in trouble less when you come to school. You come to school more often, do their tests. Like you can travel those points down the line, and any of those data points that you would like to use for proposals, they're available from our website. We point out to resource pins, and so I invite you to check out Data Exile. But we can't do the advocacy without data points, and so one of the 4 components of our work is collect data that is publicly available, but also in partnership with HISD. And so all of our work for the last 10 plus years has been to collaborate with HISD to help find those places that someone might call a little bit negative work, but instead we think of as like an asset or a growth opportunity. So we look for campuses that don't have arts education fully fleshed out on the campus. Instead of saying, well, that's bad, why can't we say, no, that's a place for us to do an infusion of arts education? How can you support your building out that program so that maybe next year it's staffed in your arts partnerships and you have field lessons. Yes, field lessons at places like Buffalo Soul Reserve, right? And so then the programming component of our work is an infusion or a bridge so that we can in support with the HISD to build out their programming so the students on the ground are getting more access. We have a data manager on staff who collects and reports out the data. We do a data publication and release to the public. Our event will be April 24th. Big plug, it's free to come. You can find that on the website as well. But we approach the collecting of data as a way to build out opportunities for us as a collective. So we're 100 arts organizations that are all working toward the same sort of question. How can we get more for more students? How can we do that without knowing where there are gaps? And so that's how we approach the question of data. We have a platform called Artlook, and our organizations that are part of the organization participate in this. Teachers who work with HIC are invited to create a profile and all of those things. But really and truly, we can't do our work without the data, and we can't do our work without analyzing the data. But it's from a place of how can we use that data to make things go better, more smoothly, so that kiddos just have this access that they deserve. Why do some kids have it, some don't? We can talk about that too. There are a lot of answers in this conversation, but we don't know what to do until we know where those places are.
You know, talking about the data, I woke up in a room of teaching artists. I would just be really interested quickly to know, from the teaching artists that you've worked with in Parks and Rec, what have been some of the most positive feedback that you've gotten from those artists in relation to the data?
Oh, that's a great question. Using it as a resource, right, for your own applications to find funding. We source funding to help support organizations and artists too, but for organizations to be able to just use that report and not have to find the staff capacity and the wherewithal to create that report. We think of one of my favorite things about Arsenic is how can we be a value add to all of the organizations within our collective? If we can take data collection and reporting and publishing off of your plate so that you can go into the classroom to do the work that brought you into that organization in the first place without having to worry about someone was just asking me what my art form is, and I said paperwork. My genre is paperwork. If I can do that for you so that you can go teach playwriting or dance or media arts, oh my God, that makes, I won the Kennedy Center honor, right? Like that, no, I know. The old one, not the new one, yes. Don't make me giggle. Yeah, so things like that. How can we take off that administrative burden so that organizations can do the work that they founded themselves to go do first? I'd love to be that way.
And as an organization, so please, how do we, leverage that data to create one of those great pathways of partnership and building the arts education community?
Thanks. That's exactly what we're here to do today, is to think about how are all of you all and how are we all interconnected? And in what ways can we actually think of this as an ongoing and building support system so that those who are able to utilize the data actually provide it in a way that's warranted. And then when we have advocates like Mayor Turner, he has the data available. He has not just the data available, but the stories. And part of what has been important for the BIPOC Arts Network Fund is to recognize the fact that most data has not actually centered our communities. We have been the target of data. We have not actually been uplifted by the data. And part of what we are approaching is how do we look at data from story? How do we look at data from lived practice? And as a network, how do we rebuild that data into something that centers our communities and how we work here? So that we are working with our data partners and continuing to put it in context, but also recognizing where the gaps have been and how do we step into the space of understanding what that looks like. We need to think of each other as a support network. Particularly at this time, where it has encouraged us around competition and encouraged us in order to think in silos, encouraged us to think about just us. How are we there for each other? How are we actually stepping into a space where it's not you telling the story, but it's actually your community member? Or I'm actually able to tell your story in order to be able to be there for you. Not in a way that I'm taking your story, but actually in a way in order to amplify it or reflect it back to another community so that it is actually more voices coming together. In what ways are we, again, thinking about that collective opportunity? I think Abby and Dr. Tovar are here to talk about our process. We are process-oriented because we are artists. We are creatives. That is our data. How do we make sure that that is not diminished just because we want numbers? How do we make sure that our stories, our process continues to feed correctly the AI machine? And make sure that we also are in control of that AI machine and not give it to other folks. So, particularly in arts education, how are we driving student success? How are we thinking about the student and not us as organizations? How are we thinking about those who are most directly affected by this work and make sure that we are putting them in the center of our conversations? And then how do we work together in order to be able to uplift that and work and move that forward? And recognize who's able to do that better, and what your skill set is, and what our assets are, and what you get to bring to the table, and how all of us together can actually bring different parts to it. And again, it's not competition. It is, again, human-centered. As we are community builders, we are artists, educators, we are in the place in order to be able to, again, show up for our students. How do we make sure that that continues to be able that we're showing up for each other? So that's part of what we're actually looking at as in this network and in the learning cohorts. How do we continue to build a infrastructure for learning communities so that your information and that we actually are able to use technical supports, advocate for you in ways that are actually based in your current reality. One of the things that we also recognize that the BIPOC Arts Network Fund was created after COVID and after the international protests in George Floyd. I need to name those crises. What is it now an opportunity in order to change the crisis into thriving? How do we not only support each other in a moment of crisis, how do we build with each other so that whatever the next crisis happens, whatever it looks like, whoever is behind it, whatever natural disaster or whatever thing, we are there together in order to be able to live this in this moment. And particularly with arts education, we cannot lose any more generations. How many students are suffering because our administrators haven't figured out how to get it together? Our public servants have failed them. And we have stepped into the gap. Or we have been there, we have been there, and we continue to do that. This is now an opportunity to think about how to do that more strategically.
You know, thinking about that when we talk about anecdotes and telling stories as art educators, it's those anecdotes that we often share, kind of how the icebreaker was and kind of popcorn out of people or tells their story. That is what we all know is so important to the long longevity of arts and education nonprofit programs. And so, you know, thinking about it since to when the peer-to-peer mentorship starts, and I'm meeting a new arts organization, how much should I really share?
A network is based on trust. The BIPOC Arts Network Fund is also not just, it tries to build a space of trust, but also recognize that it is in the practice, is that where we actually start to learn how to trust each other. It is in the doing, it is in the seeing that we actually learn how to work together. And not just work together, how you all work together, how I work together, and how this comes together. I would love to say, come full, come trust, and all believe. And I would not, yes, and also know that how are you, the generosity is important. But also make sure that you have levels of trust in order to do that. And are you actually as responsible for your peer, your neighbor? And do you hold their stories as responsible for you? And have you actually, as you said, have you learned? Are you learning through this process so that you can be an advocate for them and you, and that we are building this together? This is network theory. This is pretty much basic of who actually holds power, who are the center, how are we actually, and how do we engage each other into this information? And then again, how do we continue to build coalitions together in order so that it's not just one individual or not just one story, but it is a collection of 50 stories who are talking about itinerant spaces It is 50 stories talking about why it is, like 150 stories around like individual students who aren't actually being able to being served in this component. It is 3,000 stories talking about how many students are actually being fed in order to be able to come and do the arts education work. All of those things are necessary in order to be able to build the story, and how do we actually figure out that part as trust.
Those stories are so important. And so my excitement by joining this design team with BANF was really to have the opportunity to see the partnerships happen and blossom. Because I feel like when we meet new friends as artists and we work together, the true beneficiary of the success of this relationship is going to be that young artist that you all are working with every day. And so, we're not in this profession for the money. We're in it for that artist, because I'll speak for myself. I was once a young artist in the classroom that no one really knew what to do with, but it was a teaching artist. She played the sit-down xylophone. She put us on a change mine because she let me touch it. And that was the first time a teacher let me experiment with something in the classroom. Because it was always, sit down, don't touch that. But she was like, and so although I ended up being a visual artist, but it was the music was my introduction into teaching artists. So Jack, as we come to the end, if you could just share, what does the data look like next?
I was just thinking about your story, and I think the power of arts education for me, and I can get to the data part, but just hearing you say that.
Don't avoid the data.
Yeah, the data, no, the data is not doom and gloom. The data is just fine. There's room to grow. No, I just think about it. When you're in arts education, when you're in the school day and you're in a fine arts classroom or experience, that is often the only time you're in control of the answer. Right? There's not a right or wrong answer, and you're not looking to an instructor to say, did I get it right or did I get it wrong? But you're actually controlling the output, outcome, and the answer. And I think getting to touch the instrument, I was just thinking about my band director doing it. We can all, in those instances, think of that teacher. It probably goes pretty quickly, especially if you're a practicing artist or an arts administrator. So that story hit me really quickly. Your question about data. So we'll be releasing in April the State of the Arts data report, which focuses on the 23-24 school year. It takes that long to collect the data, assemble it, manipulate it, and analyze it. So there's always a lag. The data shows there's room to grow within HISD, but that there are a lot of things we already did. Field trips and field lessons went down in the first year of the state intervention, but we knew that. And there is a lot to be said about when a school district transitions from one superintendent to another, no matter what the politics are behind it. There's always changes that happen. The data shows the power of when HISD has a fully formed, fully staffed fine arts department. The transition between a director leaving always impacts when arts organizations can enter into those spaces. And when there's staff turnover, there's an impact. And so that's what the data is showing. That is not, to me, from where I sit, that is not a pitchfork and torch moment, but to say that to all districts that we work with, and we're entering into work with Aldi and Yes Prep, and we were very interested in what's going on in the greater Houston community. To all districts, it's like a fine arts department helps all the students within your district have more access to arts education. And I think many of the data points show minor increases or decreases in access or student-teacher ratios, nothing that would say, holy moly, we need to mobilize. Where we need to mobilize and be active from where I sit. Let me say from where I sit specifically. Where we need to mobilize is to remind superintendents and policymakers that a fine arts department within a district can move the needle forward, and organizations like BANF and Arts Connect can partner together to help that out. We're not there to be adversarial, we're there to help isolate, point out areas of growth, and move forward.
I believe you.
Yeah.
And no, I saying that wholeheartedly, oftentimes the fine arts teachers and art educators have the opportunity to work with students for their entire lives. As an elementary art teacher, I met the kid in kindergarten. I knew him for 6 years when he left as a 5th grader. As a dancer, when you meet that young ballerina, that's your student. And so I just always think about how, in my brain, one data point that I would really like to track is the first student I ever taught in public school, like that first class. I wonder what they're doing today. That would be amazing.
Let's go find them.
I sound like a documentary to me. That sounds like a documentary to me. But still, thank you so much, and just for the cohort. Where do we go from here?
The QR code should be going to learnings.houstonbanf.org. It is where we put all of the learnings that we have come together from our listening and learning circles after the 2021 crisis relief grants. We will continue to add to that website with additional learning with our communities. That is part of the means in order for us to make as much of this as transparent as we can. You also know that we are a cohort, learning community model. There are many different people who are in those communities and share with them. And we ask you to ask them, how is this going, where this is going. Again, it is our opportunity in order to be a connection point between organizations and artists, between artists and philanthropy, local, national, and regional and national. The more that we're able to bring together in this, we take this responsibility very, very seriously, and it is actually an honor in order to be able to be here as a connection to the world. We understand what that is. We are trying to continue to do this. This is why we share this information. We encourage you to continue to learn with us. There will be other opportunities, and like this one, as well as others that are going to be more specifically focused on technical supports.
Thank you so much.
The reason I'm grabbing the mic is I just want to say thank you for inviting me into this space, into the conversation. Effie and the planning committee, CISO and Ricky. If there are ways in which Arts Connect can be a support to you all that is not exclusive to organizations within the collective, you can also join the collective. But if there are things that we're not thinking about that are should be obvious, or things that we haven't explored yet, we also want to be in those conversations too. So I just want to make sure folks know that I'm always available for conversations and thinking and learning and where our gaps are so that we can be supportive of the community that are doing the work on the ground. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you all for being here, and there's a lot more.
Will you please help me thank Jack by giving. Fellow members of the design team. We are just kind of, in the family setting, just kind of hanging out again. We look at some of the questions that were filled from those questions that came to you on the internet. And I'll have questions. And so I guess the first one was, okay, let's see, because it's mine. Okay, what does student success look like in your community? Oh, there it is. What is it? High literary rates, word engaged, and mentors. I want to answer that question with a question. What is the awareness and practice of student success? So I really want to ask you, and what does student success look like for you? Anyone like to answer that quickly? Student success look like for you? For sure, when students are engaged and enjoy learning, but what is evidence of that? Is that when everyone is creating a work of art, when they finish their first piece, or is it that final presentation at the end? But we'll save the question for later and maybe use that as an example. Oh, go for it.
I'm Edward Bell. I'm a part of the Institute my network also. And me, student success looks like being inquisitive, asking more questions. Once I see a student begin to ask more questions, found their craft. That's music, art, creative writing. It shows that they are one engaged, and secondly that they are somewhat passionate about what they're doing.
I love that passion.
Great. Next, we have one success. First, let me introduce myself. Erwin Brown. I'm also a member of the design team. The next question, what success have you experienced through your work in arts education? So while you're thinking about that, let me just start off by saying I have taught at Appleton Elementary School. We have a partnership with Houston Ballet that has been in existence for the last 12 years or so. Through that partnership, we have currently 3 students who are in the Houston Ballet Academy. So it does work, but it takes the initiative of you as a teacher to encourage the students. Quite naturally, when you get a word ballet, you instantly think of tutus, and we have to kind of educate our boys to understand you're not going to be wearing tights, you're going to be doing movement. We also have 5 students who have participated. You may have heard about the MLK oratorical competition that they have every year within HISD. We had 5 students participate and go as far as the finals. So, and of course, that's something we have to really work on to encourage the students, because elementary school students may not really have a clear understanding of what a speech involves. So that takes part, you have to establish a partnership with those students to help them and encourage them as well. So that is something where the teacher has to kind of come in and encourage them, because first thing you hear, you got to write a speech that needs to be at least 3 minutes to 5 minutes long. So, automatically they shut down after that. So it takes some work, but once the students see that you are concerned about them, then that opens the door for you to get them involved. All right, so the question again, what success have you experienced through your work in arts education? Anyone want to share the expression? We have one over here and one over here. Great.
Hello, my name is Leilani, and I'm associate director of BIPOC. I had an amazing experience with my students this last December. Our cater group was presenting a play to see our colonies. And I were Olima decided to invite the whole school to see a play because we needed for free. And I was shocked to learn that all my students never had experienced a cater play. So after we finished the presentation, I told them, oh, look, for me, it's about coffee. They were excited. And every single day, let's go back to classrooms because right now down, especially shirt to shifted to a special pen, and now it looks like record a theater group. But every single day that I go to the classrooms,
provide services so that they're like winner.
Okay, what is the next one? Ms. Neer, what are proceedings? And also these questions about can I be an actor? Can I be a director? Can I design the costumes? Can I get paper out like this? So it amazes me and it makes me feel very proud that somehow it opened their eyes and see that there are further things that they can do. So what I did today, aside for you guys know, Monday, the Houston Theater District have their own dance club. I was very upset to see that information was disseminated in foreign English. So what I did, I just translated the information for my students with the schedule in Spanish, the directions to the theaters, and everything, and I gave it to them today, and I told them this spring, so I'm hoping that they are other states serve experience classical music, they serve Olympics, they take past experiences. And I'm also looking into realities where they involve themselves with their families, because that's something that I would encourage the parents to help with it, because it's important that they experience part as a family. Not only on like field trips or lessons, they have to work with their families, because that way they're going to establish connections and relationships with their family members. So that's
Respond to what you did today, because I think that that's so, I want to respond to what you did today, because I feel like that is so very important, that you, with your own artistic heart, translated that information into Spanish for your students. I would like to give you a strength suggestion and say, email that translation to the theater district that's happening on Monday and have them disseminate that for the entire city, because I think that's very powerful. Thank you so much for doing that.
Hello, my name is Allison Bates, and I am the Executive Director of the Alice Collective for Mental Health and Community Engagement. Our mission is improving mental health outcomes in Black communities through community building, but we do have a middle school wellness initiative where the kiddos come in and they get professional development, creative expression through the arts, yoga, and sound healing. So when I'm thinking about my successes, I'm not an art educator. I have a degree in music performance, but now I'm a social worker. So I chose both careers that don't pay, but that's okay, because they don't pay. But what I want to talk about are the secondary benefits of arts education, because we all know the therapeutic benefits of music. So when we're thinking about living in a capitalistic society where we're teaching to test, we're teaching for exams, we're teaching for retention rates, we're teaching for graduation rates, I think getting buy-in from the teachers, from the principals, and understanding how the wellness component of arts education can actually improve retention, can improve graduation rates. So if they see those numbers making them look good, then they can respect the arts a little more. And so one of my success stories is I like to get kids to think out of the box. I learned to play classical music. I'm terrible with jazz. Both of my parents were good with jazz because I learned the Eurocentric way of performing music, right? So what we want to do is get our kids to think outside the box. If you mess up in art, there's a way to correct it. You don't have to start over. If you're improvising in jazz, you can get back to the, you can get back to the main chord, all of those different things. So I think when we look at the arts, we have to look at it holistically and not look at it just as an educational perspective and their mental wellness. It impacts your health, it impacts academic performance, it impacts your job performance. So I think if we look at it in that lens, then we can get more buy-in from the state and from the educators.
Hello, yeah. Again, I'm Willa Mafi, or Rainflower. I'm all told beans. I was looking around the room, some of the people call me that. So I come from the streets of Northside, and we used to do graffiti. Still do, some of us. And so I'm the first female graffiti artist. And in doing those things, we had to run from the police a lot. But we would always pull that, hey, we're artists, we're artist students. We're just coming back to document other people's artwork. That's not our artwork. Hiding our spray paint hands, okay? But because of that, we had a lot of police brutality on Northside, okay? So a lot of us were also advocating against police brutality and working with the Stolen Lives Project and all these different organizations since I was a teenager, okay? So transcending that into a future now, I'm nearly 50, my eldest is 27, and we've been maintaining and part of this culture bearing, Native American traditions, bridging danza azteca, all kinds of different Native American ceremonies and into our city. So I realized that making an indigenous hip hop K through 12 course was the way to go. And it took me more than 5 years to create it, another couple to go pitch it. We had pilot programs here and there, our own people kind of shutting it down, our own people are kind of our own enemies in a lot of ways, you know. And so I just learned to transcend all of that and go start working with agencies and learning all of this verbiage like agency. And in 1 week of working with children that witnessed their father being beheaded by ISIS, and I didn't realize the level of pain that these children were carrying, in my multidisciplinary 5-day program, I allowed them to paint, and all of their paintings were splattered bloody. And the American children were just all inside the box. And then my war-torn children that were there learning Native American languages that we all collectively were learning because, you know, we're speaking English and Spanish. Now they're engaging their hearts, connecting their heartbeat, and moving their little bodies. And tell me, by the 5th day, these 2 young women from the other side of the world who had witnessed so much pain and trauma and fled their country in asylum were leading the danza azteca, leading the drum, leading in songs, the Native American arts, because that's the basis of social emotional learning. And so that's the program that I've helped to create. And I think that's probably the one of the bazillions. We've taught thousands of kids. I don't know about this data stuff, but I'm down. I do not record myself. I just do the work. But I just want to share that with you.
Hey, y'all. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I do want to acknowledge we are here to continue this conversation, but we're about to go over the 7:30 mark. And I want to put that out there so that if anyone really does feel like they need to leave, they have things to do, feel free to leave, but also, please feel serious to continue this conversation with us, but we're not done yet.
Everybody, I'm Sebastian Bonsi, the member of the design team at your service. And tonight I'm supposed to ask you about the future and how you see arts education for yourself, for your community in the future. And I want to take a second because today, this week, this month, this year, I think it's hard to say the word future without a minimum of trepidation, without maybe a whole boatload of fear, maybe. But I'm not asking you that question. I'm asking you a question about the future that you can imagine what we try, the future of what we win. So, Guy President, how do you imagine arts education in the future for your community?
Maybe some of it can connect to some responses we got to, like, what does open-ended exploration look like?
I'll answer those questions.
Someone's answering.
I'll agree.
Well, yes, so I think, and by that line, that's affected my
a little bit. But ultimately, I think, right, when it comes to the future of arts education, something that, you know, I have been taught and have been told through time, right, is this, essentially, right, when it comes to the exchange of interpersonal experiences, when it comes to culture, right, especially for those who are still learning, is this drive to, you know, introduce culture in a way that is not just sampling, is not just like, you know, drive by like, oh, today we're going to learn about St. Patrick's Day because it's St. Patrick's Day, and then that's it, you know. And so my personal hope, right, for the future of arts education is by learning about each other, right, through these experiences that help us to be a part of it. Something I know that was really touching to me, right? I'm doing Asia Society and work with Petrosky over Lunar New Year. And it was so incredible to see, right, these children, many of whom are not Asian or Asian American, looking forward to this holiday because that's something that has been like integrated into their own experience. It's not just, oh, we learned about this and, that's a passing thing. It's really becoming a part of that story, from a respectable level, but also understanding, right, that this is something that is important to specific people. I heard a speech several months ago, right? Also, like, that, I heard a speech that talked a little bit too about, like, we as human beings sometimes, there is this drive for cultural learning to, or the drive for cultural learning is more or less, fueled by this desire to really, like, how do I say, like, close deals or to get something. It's more of an exchange, transactional. So for example, right, we need to, learn how to use chopsticks because we're going to be having dinner with these, people who are from Japan, so we need to do it so that we can close this business deal. In reality, right, that is transactional, that is shallow in some respects, right? If, for example, we are fluidly integrating, right, this cultural learning, this artistic learning, making ourselves a part of the story while also respecting the people whose origins, whose origins this culture actually comes from, right? It creates a world that is much more in tune with itself. People will feel like they don't have to present themselves every time they are themselves authentically. Right, something to, sometimes students will, bring their cultural lunch to school. And people are like, oh, what is that? And you have to do this whole performance and discuss, like, here's this group of my people, this is why I brought this to school. When in reality, right, with some of this learning that is integrated into what we do ahead of time, it will be something that people will already understand from a baseline. It will make people comfortable with each other and help them to understand, right, that we are people, everyone around me is another person, just like me, with some differences that are valid and beautiful. And so, yes, for me, that's just something like that I'm hoping for in the future, where diversity is celebrated but not novel. Because like that's something, like, we are so blessed to live in Houston. We're like, all right, this is like, we're just, we're chill. Like, but being outside Houston too, it can be, and coming back, right? It's been amazing to see, oh wow, there are a lot of things that I've taken for granted. So that's just something to think about, and then I'm just gonna wrap it up. But something that kind of stuck with me too, right? I was scrolling through Instagram, and there was a video, I don't know if you'll have seen, there's like this new meme where people say like, I'm not the birthday boy, I'm the birthday boy's mom. And so like, these people go up, the birthday boy's father comes up to the camera, grapes, just stuffing these grapes into his mouth. They're from Africa. This one girl in the comment section, she's like, he's eating those grapes like it's New Year's Eve. And so that's something that clicked in my mind, because I know that that comes from like this Spanish, this cultural practice in Spain, where they eat a lot of grapes for during the New Year, for good luck. And so, right, even just that cooking, right, that understanding those jokes, those tiny things, those beautiful like pieces of understanding, if we're able to kind of spread that around, and educate each other in a way that is profound, beautiful, and impactful and lasting, right? We'll be able to laugh together without having to explain the joke first. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to. Yeah.
Thanks so much. I want to be mindful of time, so I'm happy to round out this part of the town hall together with the last question, which is, what would you like to learn from your peers in the arts education community in Houston? So we see some things on the screen already, like gathering tools, programming tips, what changes we need, but we'd love to hear from someone, one last person, so we're mindful of time, but we can continue this conversation, of course. But what is something that you want to learn from the people in this room? We're curious. Help support your work. And it could connect to any of the questions that were asked earlier as well, right? There was a lot of conversation during Ricky's conversation with Sixto and Jack. It could be data related. It could be, how do you get into certain schools? How do you stay in certain schools? Anyone want to share? Especially
I don't know if this is something that my first question, but during my personal experience teaching art for 4 years, I was tired of seeing professional developments that have nothing to do with me. So I think it would be amazing if we can go to our schools to connect with other teachers so that we can create our own PDs and invite each other to those professional developments instead of sitting on SLA, PLA, math, and PE as the professional development that has nothing to do with us when we need those resources, those techniques, those things that other people are applying to their classrooms. So I think it's important that for our teachers, they receive the proper professional development and they can do it from their peers from other school districts or
We're at time, just to be respectful to our hosts as well, but
I hope you guys have exchanged contacts with each other and looking forward to more news that comes out of this cohort. Again, I'm familiar with Asia Society Texas. We'd love to welcome yours. We'd love to bring some of your students and families to our location as well. So let's find some time to really connect with each other. And I think I'm going to pass it to Effie to
Actually, I give to close out. So everybody, please thank the design team. And thank you all for being here. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for sharing your stories. I hope this is an opportunity in order that you found other connections, you found other places in order to make commitments to each other, and that you will continue to find spaces that are generative. We know that there's a lot going on, and yet you can't show up all the time. But if you can be in community with folks, how do you learn? If you're not in the room, how do you actually make sure that you're sharing information? How do you make sure that other people know about the other information that's going on? So we are asking you, in order to, there we go, sign up for notifications and technical support workshop series. Also, this link is to a survey, and it's going to ask you about other ideas that you might need or might have about what that could look like. We are continuing an ongoing responsive learning communities. We will try to figure out, we'll take the information that you are sharing, we'll take these stories and continue to build from them. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your work, and we look forward to building with you over the course from now. We will continue to look forward to building with you. Here's.
Thank you.